How's it going, everybody? It's Ethan Merritt from the Above Average podcast, where we talk to amazing people who are above average in mindset and action. Today, I have a friend who is a climber, an artist, an entrepreneur. We have Hannah Phillips.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
What is going on?
Not too much. I mean, this is just a fun way to spend a Sunday morning. I love your guys' show. I've definitely watched an episode or two before coming on, so... I'm honored. I'm honored, honestly.
We've only had like 2 episodes, so it's
so.
all right. If you haven't watched all of them, there's only been 2, so we are brand new to this.
Putting in work.
So I'm just trying to think back, and I'm like, I met you before I moved to Pittsburgh. You were one of the first people I met in the city at all, and I met you at your guys' event.
That's right.
I think it was the first or second summit ever.
Yeah. I think the second, probably.
I think it was the second summit.
Yeah,
I met you, and I met Joe and Caitlin and Olga. The best group of people to meet before I moved here. Was like, I couldn't have gotten luckier to meet all those people and still know them.
Right? Yeah. It's funny how like that crowd has definitely evolved and changed and expanded over the years, but it's a good core group of like Pittsburgh entrepreneurs that's very supportive of each other, which is a fun thing about the city.
So we had met there, I think either at the event or maybe right after I got connected with you. We talked about media stuff. You were just starting what you work on now. And then all of a sudden, literally, I don't know how many years later, we meet. Well, we knew each other and saw each other in the city. We saw each other at the climbing gym, and you're like, "Oh yeah, this is the first day I've climbed." And I'm like, "Oh, that's weird. Me too." I'm like, "It's pretty fun." And she's like, I'm not sure if I'm into it, but I'm just here with my boyfriend. And that was the conversation.
That's
6
so
months
right.
later.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. And then like 6 months later, you're climbing like all the time, and so am I. And you're like, "Yeah, I just never really stopped, and I'm like really enjoying it." And I was like, "Yeah, same here." And now I see you constantly at the gym. So not even work related, just at the gym, which is so funny.
It's the best. I mean, climbing is, there's that meme that's like, one day you unknowingly go outside and play with your friends for the last time, which maybe it's not a meme because it's very depressing, but that's what climbing feels like to me. It's just, I'm going outside to play with my friends or inside and pulling on plastic rocks.
That's so true, and it's such a unfortunate, like a slightly upsetting thought. Is a real thought. Like that does happen. Like you will become, old enough that you don't do that anymore. And one of the few areas of culture that we find is something remotely like a gym, which we talk about all the time. But there's not many that you kind of feel like you can be a kid in any sense of the way.
For sure.
Except climbing.
Well, it's so weird too, because as you get older, your definition of fun changes or expands maybe. Like it becomes, wait, can I swear on this podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay. It becomes like going out, hooking up, like getting fucked up. And I guess that's fun for a certain period of your life, or maybe you want to get it out of your system or whatever. But I truly believe that the fun of just playing with your friends doesn't go away. It just has to take a different form somehow. And that's definitely what climbing has been for me.
Oh yeah. I'm in it's a very informal wiffle ball league.
Let's go. Oh my gosh.
So this is, shout out to the Vanucci boys. This is something that I was not a part of from the start, but friends and then friends of friends, like they found this field during the pandemic that's small enough, and like the balls that they have, it just works perfectly for what they're doing. And it was last summer they asked me like, "Hey, we need one person to film." It was very exclusive. Like I wasn't even in the original group. And then I showed up, and they've got like this playlist. The same playlist plays every time. They keep track of their stats, and they just sent like the full stat sheet for the season like last month. And it's the funnest thing ever, dude. Like I can't wait.
Oh my gosh. No, shit like that is the best.
Yeah. I mean, I just got so lucky. Like I played 3 times, and I also want to win. Like I think with that stuff, like you have to kind of take it seriously, because the more competitive it is, the more fun it is.
Yeah.
And man, it's just like, I mean, we go spend 4 hours at this field in like, I don't know, Brentford or something like that, or Brentwood, and it's just amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No,
that's awesome.
And you're getting a good workout in by proxy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hauling ass.
Right.
Like I always say I don't half-ass anything, only full ass. So.
There you go.
Full ass, baby.
Yeah, full ass.
That is how I feel about climbing. Like I've gotten myself weirdly a little bit more competitive than I even like to admit, because it was like for me personally, it was one of the few things that I did that was not super intense.
Yeah.
Because I did growing up diving and gymnastics, and it was full year competitions around sports, and then the Army. So
yeah, but both individual sports.
Both individual sports. They're on teams, obviously, but yeah, I mean, there's team scoring, but really, I mean, it's an individual sport. Like, because I'm always competing against the people on my own team every time. It's not like swimming, you might compete against your buddies and you have a relay. There's no diving relay together. It's just, hey man, it's me and you against each other, and also we're against Pitt today. And it's like, so we're really just everybody's against everybody. It doesn't really, there's not a lot of team collaboration in some sense with that sport specifically.
Yeah. I think I played tennis growing up. My dad teaches tennis professionally, so I was like born with a racket in my hand basically, but I have always been drawn to more individual sports, and I do really like that about climbing, is it's just you and your mental game and seeing if you can push your body to do something that you might walk into the gym that day and not think that you can do. So I think I'm much more prone to lean towards individual sports.
The interesting thing about climbing too, from the perspective that I have, is you spend most of the time in what other people might look at their sports and call failing, because you fall off the wall. And it is mostly, and I mean mostly, the repetitions of falling off the wall all day. And in any other sport, that's like you wouldn't get scored on all day as a goalie. I mean, all day. Like,
yeah, you'd be considered terrible at what you do.
You'd just be terrible. But falling off the wall is normal. That's that's the whole process. Is the whole thing. Like, the make isn't really the process. It's like you kind of grind it through problem sets as we have it and stuff. So it's interesting because you're like, you spend all day falling. And then also, one of my favorite things about it is like, you can go with any amount of groups of individuals that are good, bad, or indifferent, because the climbing wall has the hardest graded problem next to the easiest one. So you can always bring people and all hang out as if you're kids. Like, it's
so rewarding. And I am very much like I have to enjoy the journey of something. I have like North Stars and goals, but if I'm not liking what I do day to day, or you're not
going to make it.
I'm not going to make it. And climbing is the ultimate, the actual process of working on a problem and figuring out the movement. That's what's so much fun to me. And yes, you're falling all the time, but it's the ultimate, enjoying the journey.
Yeah, it 100% is. And with that, tell us about the competition that I last saw you at recently, like a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
How did that go? Give us a rundown.
Yeah. So my home climbing gym, Ascend Southside, or ASS as it is lovingly referred to within the climbing community.
I didn't know
that.
Yep.
Full ass. They have a competition every year called the Steeltown Throwdown, and climbers from all over Western PA, but also like Ohio and West Virginia, come up and compete. And so many strong climbers show out. And last year, it was the first competition I had ever done, and I was still relatively new to climbing. So I was in the beginner category. They have beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And this year, I was in the intermediate category. Had the best time. I am not necessarily great at competitions, because the whole point of them is to flash or on-site all of the the hardest problems that you can do. And I'm very much like a projector. I will sit my ass for 3 weeks in front of a climbing problem and work it until I get it. And that's not necessarily how you have to approach competitions. You just got to move on if you're not getting something. But it's such a fun environment. And I think I probably ended up middle of the pack in the intermediate category. But yeah, it was so much fun and really, really fun to see such strong climbers ball out.
There was some seriously freaky good climbers.
Insane.
I was there to film it, and we watched the finals. I'm assuming that you were there. You were off in the corner with me, and you watched all the same stuff I did start to finish, because going around during the day, fun climbing competition. You're grading yourself as you're going through all the things that you're doing. You're seeing everybody that's ever been to that gym practically goes and at least hangs out. And then the finals, you see people are stupid good. It's really cool, and they really hype up the competition itself.
There are some real like Sports Center moments that happen during finals.
Really?
It's like, yeah, it's really cool.
How is that scored? Like, how does that?
So there were 4 problems. There's men's and women's categories and 4 problems per category. And so there are within a problem, there's the zone, which is like the kind of the checkpoint or the benchmark. And so you get scored on whether or not you hit the zone and then whether or not you complete the problem.
Okay.
And so there are so many really, really strong climbers, but not everyone completes every problem. But if you get a zone, it's like half a point or whatever. But yeah.
And then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's attempt amounts too. Like they had a timer, but if you did it in the first try, got to the zone in the first try versus ending it versus doing it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. If it
makes a difference.
If it comes down to the wire and like 2 people complete the same problem, the person who did it in less attempts comes out on top.
And we saw some young man flash every single problem.
So insane.
I don't know.
Flash is getting something on 1 attempt, by the way.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that either.
Oh, yeah. So that terminology, I'm just throwing the word flash at you.
Climbing has the weirdest terminology. I love it. It's like its own language.
The one time I went, there was a lot of things. I don't even remember a lot of it, but people were telling me things and I'm just like, I don't know what you're saying. Like the one thing I remember specifically, I think I mentioned to you before, is when, and I don't know what this is called, but when you have the thing out of your reach.
The hold?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then you have to like squat, jump yourself
dyno,
up there.
Dyno. Yeah.
I saw people doing that.
Dynamic movement.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the highlight reel moment they do at the very
that looks wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm not very good at dynos. That's
my favorite.
You are so good at dynos. Like he's throwing himself at the wall, and I'm like all about the slow
grabbing things like
balancing. Yeah, I'm much more prone to static movement and like very balancy technical stuff.
We climb exactly opposite. You spend so much good, useful time on a project to work on something so technically there. You have such good footwork. You're working on crimps and slat, like just the littlest things.
Yeah.
And I'll climb, like I've only climbed with you a couple times realistically where we like sat and worked on a problem together, and I'll watch her. I'm like, I don't have the patience for this right now.
We have to climb together again. We haven't in a while.
Yeah. And then I see some dyno that looks fun or something where I can hang upside down. I'm like, I could probably do that. And third attempt in. This is a little more my style, you know? Yeah. But and then I've been doing, more like leads and top roping and stuff like that.
That's right. Oh my gosh. I went top roping for the first time like 2 weeks ago at APB at Ascend Point Breeze.
How do you like it?
It's different. My endurance is trash. I mean, my forearms halfway up were just so pumped. But it's really fun. Like because I have just been bouldering so consistently for, I guess, almost 2 years, a year and a half, somewhere around there. Like I'm able to do harder problems, or harder routes on top rope. It's just like a completely different mindset.
Yep. Yeah. You had to have started off on what, middle 10s probably?
Yeah.
On top rope? Yeah, I was going to say like
10C.
Like 10 BC.
Yeah.
Would have been not overly hard for sure.
Yeah.
I just led a 11A. It was like my second one.
Let's go. Yeah. Oh, that's sick.
Very fun.
Wow.
Not as strong as I once was doing it like 3 days a week. So I'm getting back into 3 days a week. So nice. I'm trying to become a real climber someday, which probably won't really happen, but it's fun.
Aren't we all? I mean, it's like, I don't think I'll ever consider myself a real climber because I love gym climbing too much. I like going outside, and there are a couple of outdoor spots that are, close enough for me to get to conveniently, but I love BSing in the gym and, working on my projects there.
Well, it's a cool sport because you can do both. I mean, most people's goals are to get outside because like the dudes in the 80s didn't have indoor gyms at all.
Right.
So that weird subculture of people that climbed was like, honestly, kind of a couple weirdos that decided it was safe with ropes to go out and figure it out.
Yeah.
And, now we have like courses and classes and YouTube videos, and you have multiple indoor gyms. So you have the option to be like an indoor gym climber,
right,
transferred outside, or just hang out and have a friend group and see the same people and go get a beer after below, at Ascend. Like it's not bad. Like you have options.
Yeah. It's a great way to work out.
It's a great way to work out.
It's my primary workout. Like I run occasionally, but I am climbing like 3-4 days a week minimum.
3 or 4 days a week minimum. I know you're always there on the weekends.
Always there.
And stuff. What so to pivot a little bit here, we've talked through climbing, and I know you in so many different facets now, but you're an artist. You're an artist and you're an entrepreneur. And so if you know Hannah from climbing, which a lot of you watching this probably will, she does a ton of other stuff too. But your artwork is awesome because it's so interesting how you have fun with it. I've seen the how you put it out there and display it is very entertaining, and it's very much showing a personality behind you. So I think some artists kind of miss the mark on doing that and thinking that their artwork will speak for itself naturally. But I'm like, well, don't you want to try to get it out in the world in a fun way and like have a personality behind it? So you gave us our cards today, which I thought were awesome gifts that you brought us. And that's what made me think of it, because he has his card on the table. So what kind of sparked you getting into artwork and painting? Yeah,
well, first of all, thank you. Very kind of you to say. That's like great feedback to hear for me, because I think it's just important to me to make good content. It's what I do professionally. So glad to hear that it's working in some capacity. But yeah, I started painting, drawing as early as I can remember. Like as soon as my fingers could hold a crayon, I was doing artwork. And I just never stopped. I was in my room for hours and hours. I'm hugely introverted, and painting and drawing just allowed me to escape, but also get in flow. And so I'm all self-taught. I've taken like one random class, and I love it. It is my favorite thing to do.
Going into like, say that you took a random class, but you're also self-taught, obviously, as with climbing, it seems like you're very much a process person throughout other parts of your life too. Is that fundamentally like how you've enjoyed learning something new? And because like, I think climbing and art, they're so compatible because they're both kind of endless learning and endless opportunities. Like unless you're Alex Honnold, literally doing things that have not been done and saying, oh, I've checked off 35 climbs that have never been besides those outliers, it is kind of endless. Yeah. And that's the same with artwork. It's going to be endless. So the process is always going to be there.
100%. Yeah. I am very much a process over product person. Same thing with climbing. Like it's the ultimate, you enjoy the journey on your way to achieving the goal. And sometimes you miss the mark. Sometimes you don't complete the problem. Sometimes you end up hating a painting. But I just enjoy doing them so much that, and you're always learning something new about it, like you said. But I also, I like to have fun and do it differently. I think I made a collection of oil paintings that was a treasure hunt like 4 years ago. And, not that that's never been done before, but I was like, we can spice things up, and I can make all these clues and send people on a hunt. And it's important for me to have meaning in my art, but also like have it be engaging for people who might not be interested in the meaning or connect with it in the way that I connect with it when I'm making it.
That's such a good way to put it, that the way that you connect with it and that other people might not. I think just going back to like, I went to art school, like as my undergrad. And I remember just looking back, and some of the people were so good and they would have a meaning behind it that they could hardly even put together in a sentence for themselves.
Yeah.
Let alone pitch it to somebody else and say they wouldn't even ask what other people thought the meaning was. And it was maybe it was a mix of like they had assumptions about what people would think it would be, or they honestly just didn't care. But then it's hard because then you're like, man, if you love this as a passion, you could make that into a career. But how do you make that pivot from being okay with your artwork versus okay with making it for like the world to enjoy instead of just your artwork?
Right. So it's an interesting balance because I have come to realize a couple of things about myself, especially with like the project that I'm working on currently. Secrecy, huge motivator for me in my creative process. Like I love working in silence and then just popping out with a finished thing, because then like there's no eyeballs on me. There's no pressure to show progress in any way if no one knows I'm working on a thing. I just get to fully be in my creative hole and complete the project. So secrecy is pretty big in that aspect, and like I think helps a lot with I get to put whatever meaning I want into this, and then once it's out there, it's for the world. They get to take it however they want. It actually doesn't matter so much what my feelings are behind it. People interpret art in hundreds, thousands of different ways. So it's as long as I get to enjoy the process of it and like really hone in my focus when I'm making it, people can take it however they want. We
actually didn't do their shout out.
So we could now. Here, you want to do a cheers instead?
Oh yeah. Wait,
yes.
I'm gonna pull up their address. I haven't tried this yet. This has the pumpkin seed milk in it.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Fake, doesn't it?
Does.
Yeah.
All right, so we're taking a quick tactical pause to have some juice that we had on the table and we have not talked about for a single second.
Hell yeah.
It's so good.
It's
Is
fantastic.
that one good?
Yeah. I thought it would be like creamier than it is, but it's, I mean, it's very much pumpkin seed milk.
Sounds like it would be
milk.
creamy, but
yeah, but it's not. But it's fine. I mean, it's very good. 111 Juice Bar. And I had their address. So they have two locations. One is in the South Side, 2743 East Carson Street, and the other is at 4901 Second Ave, floor 1, downtown Pittsburgh. Check them out.
Fantastic stuff.
check them out.
Yeah,
it is
they hooked
delicious.
us up. Yeah, it's very good. It's very good. And as we both were talking about how we just drink a lot of coffee and we need to broaden our spectrum, I drink coffee and water. That seems to be it. And sometimes beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But moving on to bigger and better things here on the podcast, I want to talk about something we very briefly touched on, which we are allowed to talk about, which was awesome.
Yes.
So what are some of your entrepreneurial jobs that you are doing and initiatives that you have?
Yes. So my full-time job is I am a co-founder and chief creative officer of a video production agency called Piper Creative. We produce marketing materials, YouTube series, and video podcasts for other companies, some based in Pittsburgh, some elsewhere. So that is like what I do full time, the art, the climbing. It's all just fun side hustles that bring me joy. But we also produce a lot of content for ourselves. We have a rapidly growing YouTube channel where we talk about a lot of geopolitics and business stories. We make long form video essays on that. And I am also producing my own content series now. That is a dating show. It's called Flirt, and I interview first dates.
That is amazing. I think that this is fantastic because you brought this up and I was like, oh man, I think that's in the weirdest but awesomest sense. It's kind of on brand for you to like go through this. And I think it's because you were talking about some different parts of dating and having something centrally located that Pittsburgh has that's a little bit more us, I think is going to be a super, like, I'm so excited to see the outcome of this because I think it's going to be really fun. But outside of it being just, you know, what you were just describing, what else can we expect with it?
Yeah, well, so I I decided to make it because I have always thought that I'm the most awkward flirt. I'm awkward receiving flirts. I'm awkward flirting with people. It's just never been a strength of mine. I have a very hermetic lifestyle and I like it that way. But this year I definitely, I just wanted to reprioritize it. I hadn't prioritized dating in years. So I was dreading getting back on the apps. And I was like, well, how could I make dating exciting for myself? I was like, maybe a little creative challenge, throw some content in there. And it has been like the best, coolest thing that I could have done for myself. I somehow got very lucky with the guests. They're all awesome. Yeah. And we are in the midst of shooting now. It's going to be an 8-episode series and we have shot, I have my 7th date today, actually.
7th date today.
Yeah.
So I think I misunderstood this initially when you were talking about it because you're on the date.
On it.
And you're also interviewing.
Correct.
So initially when you said that, I thought that you were setting up other people on dates and you were then like producing that, like interviewing.
Right.
Like,
oh, no.
Whole different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, whole different thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some primo content though. I mean, people would watch, I'd watch the hell out of that.
Right. Well, so that's
bringing popcorn.
So that's the other thing that I realized is there are so many reality dating shows that people go feral for. Like
true.
The Bachelor is huge. Love Island. Love is Blind. People love. Oh. But they are all.
I fell for that one too. I fell and watched a whole season like in 2 days.
Wait, is that the? No, sorry, that's not what I'm thinking of. I was thinking of is it like Naked Attraction or something like that?
Naked Attraction is
out of pocket.
It's so unreal.
Yeah.
Like Britain, they get crazy.
I thought there was no way that it actually was what it was. And
no,
it was exactly
it's everything.
That. Yeah, everything. You know what that is?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in England, so this doesn't surprise me. But also when I saw it there, I was just in England recently, and I was like, all right, what is happening?
Crazy.
This is on normal cable television.
It's wild. But there are all these dating shows that are super contrived and in these very unrealistic scenarios. Like let's throw 20 women in a house, make them live together, and all date one person. Let's throw all these hot people in a house together and just fill them with booze and let's see how many fuck each other. It's like, it's just contrived. And so this is like a regular first date and it's just with a camera and a couple of mics added. So the conversations are very much typical first date conversations with a little like more in-depth relationship centric talk. Like I like to ask people if they know their love languages and how they want their partner to make them feel in a relationship, how they want to make their partner feel. And it's easier to get to those deeper questions when it is for a show. Like sometimes those topics don't come up on first dates. So.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of dates have you been going on? I feel like there might be some restrictions like taking in some cameras and going on a date at a restaurant and being like, hey, don't worry about us.
Yes.
This isn't weird, So I just, I don't want to clue in on too many of the details if you have a bunch of recorded and we don't see them.
That was my next question too, to be fair. I was gonna ask where this is happening.
Yeah.
What's been your setup for it? Making it very natural feeling versus natural in reality,
Well, I mean, so the guys know what they're signing up for. It's like, it's definitely
that'd be great if you surprised them. Right. There's like this setup. They're like, I have the wrong person.
Yeah. Show up to Bar Marco with a whole crew. It's like, no, they know what they're signing up for. It's definitely out of the ordinary in just a traditional date setting. But I shoot at my co-working space in just one of the conference rooms with like a couch, and we just sit there and chat and see if we connect. And yeah, it's very like, I have to be able to control the whole setup too, because it is a first date, and normally I don't have a video crew on a first date with me. So I am like running the entire thing. And I'm just there and connecting with people. So
you're doing this solo dolo, at least, in the production of it. So oh man, has there been any good stories, and what's the general vetting process for you to get from, talking to somebody to pitching it and then pitching it to like going through, like, just broad strokes? How's that been?
Yeah. So I had to set up my profiles on the apps. That's how I'm sourcing people, is Hinge and Tinder. For some reason, not Bumble, but I was like, I can only handle 2 at this moment. So I set up my profiles to be very explicitly clear. Like, I am producing a first date show. If you want to be a guest, swipe right, or whatever it is. And a lot of people have matched and been like, is this a joke? Like, this is a bit, right? And I'm like, nope, it's entirely serious. Can I interest you in a first date on camera? And so the vetting process is usually, it's been easy because a lot of people are just either fully out, they're not interested whatsoever, or they like don't actually read my profile at all and just send a sleazy line and about like one of the pictures. And
classic dudes being guys,
firing from the hip.
Yep. So in that sense, it has been pretty easy to vet people. And a lot of people have thought that I am just doing this for the content and I'm not actually interested in dating whatsoever. And that's not true. I'm not having anyone on who I wouldn't like date in a regular context. Like I have to have skin in the game somehow. It's only fair. So yeah, that's a roundabout way of answering your question of like, how do you get guys on? I have people on who I am either interested, attracted to, and who are like doing it for the plot.
There you go.
Have you noticed a difference between like Tinder and Hinge? Like in terms of just like...
man. So first message wise, yes.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. All the grossest stuff comes from Tinder, but I've also had like some of my favorite guests from Tinder. So it's a weird balance. But there is definitely a difference.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works. Because Tinder, I feel like was around. It was at the height of its popularity like years ago, like when I was in college, and so it's like 5+ years now.
Yeah,
and then. I think Hinge has always kind of marketed itself as being like the serious one.
Right.
And so you tend to get, I don't know, more depth with that one.
Mm-hmm. It's been interesting because you can set your intentions on both of the apps. So sometimes people say like, I'm only open for short term or long term, or I don't know yet.
Yeah.
And usually if someone has I don't know yet in their profile, they are looking for long-term, like they want a deep connection, but the first date is so low stakes that it's like, yeah, I'll go on a dating show. Why not spice it up? So yeah, it's just interesting. Like, Tinder is definitely, I think, just thought of as more of a hookup app.
Yeah.
But I've met some really, really cool people on Tinder.
Just curious on this front too, because I don't think it really gives much away. Have you had somebody on there thus far that you did know or have met, and then you're like, oh, I kind of did have an interest in him. This is a good opportunity again. Therefore, maybe you do match. So have you found somebody you cross paths with and then you were able to pitch them thus far? Or is that not the case?
Man, that's
is it all new people?
It's all new people. I'm not opposed to having someone on who I have met, but the whole, my whole idea for it and the premise of the show was a new person that we're on a very raw first date. So that's interesting. I tend to not match with people that I know on apps anyway. I really aggressively swipe left.
So there may or may not be any crossover at the climbing gym at all.
Oh God.
None. None.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah, no. If I see a climber, I swipe left.
I mean, you don't necessarily want to cross too many paths. I do understand that. Like I would get that because then like if things don't work out and they're at the same gym, we've both seen it with couples. I know couples, you probably do too, and we see it and then it splits and you're like, okay, now it's weird.
It's weird. I am a big don't shit where you eat person.
Yep.
Could not be more of a fan of that.
Yep.
Mindset.
Yeah. I completely get that. I think that's the smartest way to do, most of those things because people might mess up something that they enjoy, like climbing. And then they're like, well, now I got to like go to a different gym. And it's like, oh man, such a bummer that people make those mistakes.
It's a bummer.
But I guess when you're, enjoying somebody's company, you don't think it's a mistake and you're like, oh, how could things ever go wrong?
Right.
But
we're made for each other.
Exactly. I'm thoroughly excited to watch this though. So when do these come out? Like what's the cadence you'll have? Where's it going like where are these going to be roughly?
Yeah, they'll all be on YouTube. If you just search Flirt Podcast or Flirt Show, I'll actually send you a link and like that'll be more exact. But I am releasing them in the same way that Love is Blind releases their episodes. So I'm dropping the first 4 episodes in a chunk so people can binge if they want. And then the next 2 the following week and the next 2 the following week. So
you're having it all produced out, ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They'll be live on February 13th for Galentine's Day. And yeah, going from there. So by the time you're watching this, they'll all be published.
All right.
Yeah.
Super exciting to hear about that. And so where would the next steps be with that, you think? So like you were saying, and I think that some people might be just assholes about this, but you were telling me before on here that some people think it's like a way for you just to get views.
Right.
But you did make it clear that you're like, oh, well, I mean, what's wrong with having something fun and also maybe finding either a person to actually date continuously or just like enjoy this whole thing. Yeah,
I approached this whole thing with the intention of hopefully finding a connection with someone. And so moving forward, producing the show has been so much fun. And I would love to make a season 2 with one of the guys that I am now like friends with that didn't work out. I think The Bachelor does that. Like they take someone who doesn't like win and make them the next Bachelorette. So I would love to do that, but I would have to convince one of the guys to be on board with that. I don't think it would be too hard, but we'll see. So the long answer to your very simple question is I am like in the midst of shooting and dating right now and have met a bunch of cool people that I feel very lucky to have like made connections with. Nothing is official as of late. It's all very much a gray area.
I really admire the fact that you very intentionally are not trying to like make it feel forcible and also make it a little like as genuine as you can. But unlike some of those other shows where we all know that, they fabricate some stuff, but also they really do like they add a little fuel to the fire in the sense that they're like, hey, it's kind of like unlimited alcohol here. Also, but you can't contact the outside world. So it makes you like have to talk to those people and
totally.
And you might lose a little sense of reality if you're like kind of living in a bubble, but it's very much supposed to be that way.
Yep.
But here you're like, okay, here I'm going to date at 12. That person still goes back to their normal life the next day. And they're like, oh, good, bad, experiences different, whatever it may be. But it's still, you're catching them in like a normal date situation.
Yeah. Normal date situation. And I am like, I'm a pretty slow dater anyway. I really like to take my time to get to know someone. So despite the fact that there has been a flurry of first dates, and by that I mean like shooting started 2 weeks ago and I've been on 6 dates in 2 weeks and met 6 new people. Wow. And there are certainly people that I don't have connections with or see or want to pursue anything with, but I have to like keep reminding myself, you can take your time with this. Like you can be in contact with these guys. They have made no commitments to me. I've made no commitments to them. We're all just like getting to know each other. So, so there's that. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on is these dates are totally sober, which is very unusual for a lot of the guys. I'm not like a huge drinker myself, so it's not that big of a deal, but I knew that I'm running an operation here, so I want to be very clear. But yes, some of the guys have said like, wow, this is the first sober date I've had like in years, like since before college. Yeah.
Interesting. I can believe that just knowing some of my guys, and I think there's a level of just comfort with just having a couple drinks. It just makes you feel relaxed.
Drinks is such an easy first date too. It's like it's very low stakes. There's no huge time commitment. It's relatively cheap. It's not a full dinner. So yeah, drinks is like the easiest cop out first date.
Yeah. But like, I think it is sometimes because it doesn't take much effort, but at the same time, I understand. Cause like if you're a guy, like I had this happen and I've told this to a couple people, like, I had somebody very much really expect me to pay for dinner. And I think that was really the intention start to finish. And then I've talked to some of my girlfriends and they're like, oh, I used to do that all the time. And I was like, oh, so you're just riding on some dinners. Hey, you know what? I get it. I mean, to each their own or how they want to do life. Right. I very much, agree with, you're a free American, go do your thing. But I was like, what do you expect then when somebody's like, hey, you've just expected them just to like give you some free stuff. And then the stakes are like, that guy is then going to be like, oh, wow, man, like that sucked because all she did was like kind of want a meal, and this for a guy to wash, rinse, repeat, do that a couple times, like they get a little jaded,
For
They're like,
sure.
oh, I don't want to do that.
No, I'm not a fan of leaving my house enough to put that much effort into like just getting a free meal. I like cooking for myself. Like I don't need you to buy me a dinner.
Your pasta content slaps. I mean, there's
thank you.
there's not a lot of other places.
So much pasta.
There's not a lot of other places that would, be able to top that right now.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. It has been so much fun. I've never enjoyed dating more.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, awesome.
I think that's a good outcome. And for someone to kind of judge and be like, well, it might just be for views, be like, this is how I'm enjoying dating.
Yeah.
You might be enjoying dating by drinking and like doing it a whole different thing.
Yep.
But what's to say that I'm not enjoying this, truly enjoying this?
There are no rules too. Like
exactly.
We live on a floating rock in space. I'm going to be around for another 60 years, maybe. Like there are no rules. This is a blip on the radar of what my life will be, hopefully. So, it's just so fun.
That's awesome. So with all the, we're on, by the way. So I don't know if you started.
Oh yeah, we're good.
I probably should check that.
Cool.
Whoops. With all the things that we've talked about today, you've definitely shown that you do enjoy process thoroughly. It's been a place where you learn and you become creative and you have a flow state, which flow state is, as I've gotten older, I feel like sometimes it is harder to tap into because you're more mechanical and you have to just get more stuff done. Like you're just adulting more.
Yep.
Like you have tasks that are you just got to do them and it gets you out of being able to get into a flow state. So, what's been beneficial about like becoming such a process type person where you've really enjoyed that? Because I think the longevity of that and then being motivated behind that's really important because as we were just talking about, I don't think people don't tend to want to do a lot. And I don't know what it is. I guess sometimes you get older and maybe you just get complacent, or maybe people don't like taking as much risk as you get older. You kind of learn, oh man, like I've tripped and stumbled a few too many times. I don't want to put myself out there. How have you overcome that just in general?
I think it was probably more of a nurture thing than a nature thing. Nature-wise, I'm very optimistic. Like I always see the bright side in things naturally. I'm very grateful for that. But nurture-wise, I was homeschooled from kindergarten through 7th grade. And I think that having that time growing up and being very tight with my family and still like having friends in school, my neighborhood was packed with kids and we had the best backyard. So like I was socialized appropriately, but having the time where instead of sitting in a classroom for 7 hours a day, I would do my workbooks and get my school done in 2 hours and then have the rest of the day to do literally whatever I wanted. Most of the time it was painting. I taught myself Photoshop when I was like 10. I was always just looking for the next thing to fill my time. And I also got so comfortable like being alone. And I think I mentioned that I'm highly introverted and love spending time by myself. Part of the reason why I had to make an effort to prioritize dating, but yeah. And I think I don't want to mess that up. I think in a meta way, homeschooling also just allowed me to be comfortable going slightly against the grain in all things. Like I don't learn things in a traditional way or in the way that is expected. I go about things in, 1 degree off, like it's just slightly unusual. And I'm very comfortable with that. Like that is what I know to my core. So I don't know if like having a bias for action is also built into that somehow, but I just, people don't do shit. And it's because they it doesn't even occur to them to do shit. Like there are no rules. You can do whatever you want as long as it's legal. But
I have a very weird background. Like it is like if you talk to the regular person from Pittsburgh, they are beyond shocked at like, oh, you've lived in like 3 different countries and you've traveled to like around the world before you were like in high school. So it seems strange to them. And sometimes I get the eyeballs where they stare at me and they're like, oh, that's crazy. I'm like, well, I'm just sitting right here with you still. So is it that crazy? I'm like, At the end of the day, I'm like, I understand where that comes from because I have a unique background that is just abnormal for here. Mm-hmm. And so I'm more prone to being like, I'm very okay with meeting new people and traveling by nature, just because I grew up that way. Like I went to like 10 different schools total, And so I think it's interesting. It's like a fact about you that I did not know that you were homeschooled at some period. And it makes sense because in a lot of ways, that's how your work and work-life balance structure kind of looks like now. And I think, I'm just assuming here, you would lose your mind working a 9 to 5.
Oh my gosh, I'd be done. I'd be fried. Yeah.
I completely understand. And the way that you were built up to learn, makes sense for that. But also it's made you have a superpower of creativity and being able to kind of push limits because you are so okay with like being yourself, so okay with being independent and just being like, oh yeah, I don't have to just like do X, Y, and Z right now today exactly this way. Whereas most kids are put in that scenario. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's in a lot of ways good to be in public school because it teaches you, it's still a decently equal playing field.
For sure.
Maybe it's not the best education specifically,
But who really needs like anything that we learn in school?
Right.
Outside of like basic reading and,
Call it more the experience of public school is probably like the best outcome of public school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, to hear that you, started not doing that. So like you went to public school later, I assume? Or a school.
I had such a weird mixed bag of an education after homeschooling. So I went to an art school for 2 years. It's called Lincoln Park. And had, instead of like 7 hours of just regular classes, it was like usually 3 hours of other art classes per day. So did that for 2 years, but it was like an 1.5-hour bus ride there and back. So could not really take that. And then I was cyber schooled for a year, and that's when I started my like little media freelancing business and building a client base. And then I graduated from public school. I spent my last 2 years of high school in my local public school, and didn't go to college because I had already kind of built up the media stuff by that point and was making okay money. I think that's an incredible way to go about having like your upbringing. And it like I said, it plays a part in how you process things and do things a certain way. And it's, it makes me worried about people sometimes because there's not a lot of people like that have that. And I think,
I like to harp on Gen Z because in a lot of ways I think they're kind of funny in their own goofy way of
They're
being
ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous.
like some things that they do are preposterous to me.
Oh yeah.
Because I am now aging myself and becoming older. But in some sense, I look at some of them, and a lot of them I found talking to like my younger cousins, they were, they are 17 and 16 and they like missed most of high school because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so they became weirdly independent. And now they like, one of them just turned 18 and they like don't do a lot, but they're also very okay with that. I had this feeling of wanting to leave the nest, and leave and go do stuff and explore as my upbringing was though too. So in my nature, comfortable. But they don't like do that. Yeah. So in some sense, I get worried because I'm like, man, like these kids, like some of them aren't like social and they don't really know how to work. But then in other ways, I'm like, I wonder what their strengths, like we'll see their strengths in the next 10 years that, we didn't have the exact same ones. So I really wonder what the balance will look like in the future.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's so weird and hard to predict now because like I consider myself like an outdoor kid. Like we played outside when we were little, and I just think you're seeing less and less in that of that. And I am convinced that collectively the biggest regret of our generation is going to be we spent so much of our time like looking at a 4-inch screen. And I don't know. I can't, that's kind of what motivates me is I don't want to be in my bed scrolling all the time. I want to be making stuff and doing stuff and doing weird stuff. And it just like it all plays into the life experience. And I don't know. Your phone it'll always be there, but there's nothing on there that could be remotely as good as what you could experience in real life.
I 100% believe that. And going out and doing things, in any capacity, there's so many ways to do it. As we've talked about, getting creative, going to a climbing gym, just pushing yourself out there so that whatever the end of the outdoor kid might be, there's at least the beginning of some other, process we'll see with people, hopefully. But at the end of the day too, it's kind of wild to watch some kids and how their upbringing is. It's very different. It's very exceptionally sped up too in how that's changed.
Oh my gosh, it's so scary.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it from a sports perspective all the time because that's the one thing you see. Like when I was coaching, it was like 8 years of youth coaching. You see you like see the change, over that period of time. And I mean, I think about when I was in high school, not everyone plays. And there were guys that were in my grade that played all 4 years and probably accumulated like 60 minutes total. Today, that would never happen because kids wouldn't make it that far. They're not starting the first game, they quit because they don't really even care about playing in general. They just want to they want the glory, but they don't want the work. And that, what I just said right there is just so like these darn kids. And like I'm always consciously aware of that, but it is a thing. Like it's very much a real thing.
It's really hard for, I think, people in general to create stakes for themselves and like get skin in the game somehow. But it also, I think that's another thing that homeschooling specifically gave me because I did have so much time to develop different interests and passions that are now fully serving me in my career and adult life. But when you are in school doing the same thing as everyone else for so long and comparing yourself to so many people, it's hard to like latch onto something and claim it for yourself. And that's like the thing that I want most for people is like, let's find your thing. Just try stuff. If you've never tried climbing, oh my God, just visit your local gym tomorrow or go out and like climb a real rock. It doesn't matter. Just try stuff. Find what lights you up purely for yourself. Not the comparison game. Like you don't have to be the best at it. Just like, what do you enjoy doing? And I don't know, they want the glory, but don't want to do the work. And it's just, you gotta, it's flipped. Like the glory is in the actual process.
Yeah. It goes back to what you were saying about like loving the process.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've made this point to people before where like, if you're in it just for game day, you're not going to make it, because that makes
No.
up like less than 5% of your entire year. And so, I mean, that was the whole, I played soccer in college. I barely played in 4 years, but I loved training. And that was the whole reason I made it, because otherwise, if you hate to train, that's 5-6 days out of your week. You're not going to.
You have to love it. You have to love it, or at least be disciplined enough to do it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just are not.
And, that comes from a place of love too. Like
Totally.
there's times I didn't love the sports I was in. In general, I loved it. And I like competing. Like I miss the feeling of competing, because as an individual sport athlete too, it was very much like you had said, that there's a weird amount of pressure, and I liked it. I did better at competing than I did at just regular practices, So I miss that. I kind of want to do that in climbing, but I'm not quite. I'm not quite at the level I need.
I don't know. I think you could get into some comps and do well.
Oh, I don't know.
I think
we'll see.
Why not?
We'll see.
Just do it.
just try it. Just try it. That's like I talked about for the last 10 minutes straight.
Just do things.
Just do things.
Just do things.
I will do things, because like I'd expressed to somebody, like with diving, it was the most unique way of pressure. It was high pressure because you start to walk down the diving board and do a hurdle. The pool's silent. The swimmers don't swim while you're diving in competition at all. Everybody watches it. It's the first event. So there's hundreds of swimmers from both schools. Your points are just on you. 6 dives only. So if you mess up one, you already know where you're going to be placed. But the interesting thing is when you hit it really well, or it's bad, the minute you're in the air, as soon as you're hurdling, then you're in the air, you go into the water, and if it was good, bad, or indifferent, it's silent in there, which is weird. So at the climbing gym, it was hype and you hear it all. When you dive, if you hit the best dive you've ever hit, you hit the water and you have 2 to 3 seconds of no noise.
That is really
have
weird.
Chills. That is so cool.
Never thought about that.
My best dive I ever did, I went into the water and I was under, and I kind of stayed there for a second longer. I was like, oh my God, that was the best dive I've ever done. I knew it immediately.
You have to insert a clip of that if you have one.
Oh, I wish I could put that feeling in people. Say it is bizarre. And then you come up and you hear the audience, but you get a moment of clarity where it's sort of weird where my work paid off, and only I get to feel that underwater, because no one else is there for just a minute.
That's
even
so
though
cool.
everybody sees you right after.
That's so cool.
It doesn't happen in anything else.
No.
Doesn't.
There's no other sport I can think of.
It's so bizarre, but it is the coolest feeling. So I miss feeling like that level of pressure, because I like to compete in it. So
Interesting.
I think people need to try competitions. I've been an advocate on many podcasts already saying try something where it's a competition.
Yeah.
If you never have, I think it's good for you.
I think it's the lamest shit when people are like, "Oh, I'm not competitive. I don't care." Shut up.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. You don't have to. I went to Putt Shack yesterday. Have you been there yet?
Oh yeah.
I have.
So fun. Super cool.
It's a good time.
I went with 7 people. I came in dead last. I was pissed about it. And again,
as you should be. I thought you were an athlete, Will.
dude,
What's up with this?
I had a bad day.
I suck at putt-putt. It's the worst.
It's a very different setup than a normal mini golf course, but that's what makes it fun. I've never really, sure, there's certain things where if I'm playing Monopoly, am I going to try and win? Yeah. But if I don't win, do I care that much? No. That's the difference.
Yeah.
You're always trying to win. It's the matter of is it a big deal to you if you lose?
Right.
That's the difference. Not I'm just not competitive.
Right.
Bullshit.
Right.
Makes me so mad.
He has a lot of opinions about that, and I agree with you though.
Yeah.
I do.
No,
I think it's good for
there's
people.
got to be stakes somehow. It has to mean something to you somehow.
Yeah.
I think so much going back to the iPad kid generation. I think when you're so deeply in that, it's very easy for nothing to mean anything to you, and you gotta.
That's a problem.
Yeah, you gotta fire these kids up somehow, right?
You gotta fire them up somehow. Absolutely.
Dangle pit viper sunglasses in front of them or something. Yeah.
Crocs. Compete for Crocs.
in sport mode. I don't know what else.
So where can people find you for all the things we talked about today? Either public pages, professional pages, websites.
Yeah.
Just let you take a crack at all your things.
Yeah.
Plug it all. Plug it all.
Well, if you want to work with me, if you're in need of some marketing videos, you can find my company at pipercreative.co. Otherwise, you can reach out to me, slide in the DMs at HP Media on Instagram. Trying to think if there's anything else. It's mainly Mainly the only two. Yeah.
Mainly the only two.
Yeah.
Cool. Besides that, they might see you on the apps, I guess, for the show. So there's that too.
Yeah. Yeah, you might.
Awesome. Well, great talking to you. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody else watching our next episode. And find Hannah. Enjoy this one.
Thanks for having me.